Okay. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Hello and assalamu alaikum everyone. Good morning to those joining us from Australia. Good afternoon to our friends from the Americas. And good evening to all of you who have joined us from Europe, Africa, and Asia. I am Aisha, and on behalf of the very talented team of women at the Working Women Welfare Trust, I welcome you all to this parallel event for UN CSW Forum 68. Our webinar today is titled Empowering Female War Survivors and Women Living in Conflict Zones, Rights and Rehabilitation. Please stay tuned as we formally begin our session with the beautiful recitation of the Holy Quran.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
سبح لله ما في السماوات وما في الأرض وهو العزيز الحكيم. هو الذي أخرج الذين كفروا من أهل الكتاب من ديارهم لأول الحشر ما ظننتم أن يخرجوا وظنوا أنهم مانعتهم حصونهم من الله فأتاهم الله من حيث لم يحتسبوا وقذف في قلوبهم الرعب يخربون بيوتهم بأيديهم وأيدي المؤمنين فاعتبروا يا أولي الأبصار. ولولا أن كتب الله عليهم الجلاء لعذبهم في الدنيا ولهم في الآخرة عذاب النار. ذلك بأنهم شاقوا الله ورسوله ومن يشاق الله فإن الله شديد العقاب. ما قطعتم من لينة أو تركتموها قائمة على أصولها فبإذن الله وليخزي الفاسقين. وما أفاء الله على رسوله منهم فما أوجفتم عليه من خيل ولا ركاب ولكن الله يسلط رسله على من يشاء والله على كل شيء قدير. ما أفاء الله على رسوله من أهل القرى فلله وللرسول ولذي القربى واليتامى والمساكين وابن السبيل كي لا يكون دولة بين الأغنياء منكم. وما آتاكم الرسول فخذوه وما نهاكم عنه فانتهوا واتقوا الله إن الله شديد العقاب. للفقراء.
Today's webinar is being hosted by Working Women's Welfare Trust, and its chairperson, we thank its chairperson, Ms. Abda Farheen, who has worked tirelessly along with her team to see this to fruition. Working Women Welfare Trust is a registered, not-for-profit, non-governmental organization based in Pakistan. Their areas of work include women empowerment through uplifting and supporting working women, as well as providing income-generating opportunities for marginalized women. Their advocacy and legal aid work propagates for legislation on issues faced by working women. And lastly, their capacity building work aims to guide and educate the younger minds about their professional and personal development. We are very privileged to be joined today by an esteemed and well-accomplished panel of speakers, Dr. Fawzia Alvi, Dr. Saima Asma, Ms. Noura Farooq, Ms. Maryam Shoaib, Dr. Amir Jamal, Dr. Samia Rahil Qazi, Ms. Shamim Shawl, Ms. Tazeen Hassan, Dr. Javeria Saeed, Ms. Abida Farheen, and Al Khidmat Foundation. At this point, I would request all the attendees to stay muted for the entire duration of the webinar. Our speakers will be answering questions, so I request that you type out your questions in the chat box throughout the session, and we will try to accommodate as many questions as time will allow us. Our moderator for this session, Ms. Amna Rumaisa Zahidi, is the Director of Training and Development at the Working Women Welfare Trust. She was certified and recognized as a member of Women in International Trade as part of the International Trade Council. She is a former lecturer and researcher at the Dow University of Health Sciences. Ms. Rumaisa is known for her social activism and advocacy work for rights of working women. She is also the founder and CEO of Namood Network. Without further ado, I would now hand over the floor to Ms. Rumaisa. Over to you, Rumaisa.
Thank you, and Jazakallah Khair, Aisha, for such nice words and a concise and brief introduction of Working Women Welfare Trust and what we are doing. Today, we have all joined hands together to celebrate an event, a parallel event of NGO CSW 68 on empowering female war survivors and women living in conflict zones, rights and rehabilitation. We have a very beautiful consortium of valued members, and our esteemed guest here will speak, and they will not only speak, they are the players, real players in the field, and they are practically engaged in the rehabilitation and in the development of the areas where the female war survivors are trying hard to survive and to thrive. And without further ado, I'll introduce my first speaker. Our first panelist is Dr. Fawzia Alvi. Dr. Fawzia Alvi is a Pakistani Canadian who completed her training in the US and has lived in Calgary since 2007. The founder of Humanity Auxilium, a medical relief organization, and she started this in response to the Rohingya crisis in 2017. And Dr. Alvi led her first medical team to serve in Gaza with World Health Organization in 2017. And several food trucks and medical aid have been sent to Gaza since October 7 by Humanity Auxiliary. The second medical team is leaving this week in conjunction with the World Health Organization, and she was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize in 2019, and the Rotary Club award her with the Paul Harris Fellow Award. And we are really happy to have you here, Dr. Fawzia Alvi, and she has just recently been returned from Gaza, and we love to hear her experiences and how she contributed to the rehabilitation of female war survivors. The floor is yours. Dr. Fawzia Alvi.
Awesome. Thank you very much for having me. First of all, I wanted to say thank you, for inviting me here. Can you hear me well?
Alhamdulillah, you're good.
That's awesome. And last couple of days have been so busy. I was thinking to consolidate my thoughts and maybe have a presentation made for you with my, especially in response to my recent visit to Gaza. But in the last 2 days, we have been so busy because our medical team is in Cairo now on the way to Rafah. And what's happening now in the north since yesterday, it's been like a chaotic last couple of days. So I'm just going to speak what's in my mind without any presentation, without anything. And, I just wanted to say that as we marked the International Women's Day, we not only celebrated the remarkable strides women have made since the UN recognized this day back in 1977, but also acknowledged the urgent need for action on many fronts. So this global celebration is a testament to the economic, social, and political accomplishments of women, yet it also serves as a resounding call for the advancement in these critical spaces. I would like to give some stats on it. Like in 2022, more than 600 million girls found themselves navigating the harsh realities of conflict-affected countries, an alarming 50% increase since 2017. These women faced unparalleled challenges ranging from displacement, violence, to even generational trauma, hindering their ability to fully participate and contribute to their societies. So, I have to say with regrets that, on this this time of the Day of Celebration, while we celebrated the Just International Day of Women, our attention is focused this year on the grave humanitarian crisis, what we are facing in Gaza right now. So just last week, the US Defense Secretary disclosed a harrowing truth. Over 25,000 plus Palestinian women and children have lost their lives in Gaza due to Israeli military assault. The Gaza Health Ministry reported a staggering 8,400 women among these casualties. And each number represents a life, a story, and a dream cut short. We extend our concern not only to those affected in Gaza, but also to the hostages who are victims of a political conflict. So, but the stats are in for Gaza for women casualties. But I just returned from Gaza, and for someone who has been to the refugee camps in the the earthquake, flooding, natural disaster areas, I was thinking that I have seen worst of all until I arrived in Gaza a few weeks ago. And the medical situation in Gaza is horrifying. You cannot imagine that what it's like to be a pregnant woman in Gaza right now. We have seen pregnant women delivering in the streets just behind the the makeshift tents that's made by it's literally bed sheets and blankets. And the babies are born at nighttime. So at nighttime, because there's a curfew and it's not safe to go, these women who are delivering, because first of all, there's a malnutrition. Everybody was malnourished in Gaza, including the pregnant women, nursing women, children's. And so due to the malnutrition, they are having iron deficiency anemia. And the doctors who are on this forum right now and listening to me, that what happened to pregnant women when they're having iron deficiency anemia and they go into labor, they blood, they hemorrhage. So the women's, they're hemorrhaging to death in the tents. And this is I will say that unspoken, untold stories that are not coming out. Their number is not anywhere in the stats, because the Ministry of Health of Gaza, they tell the number of deaths that, they are killed in the bombing or the sniper shots, but not in the women. They are thinking that maybe it's a natural death that the women died, during the labor, but it's not. They are dying due to this totally preventable cause, that due to the forced starvation that has been implemented on women in Gaza right now. And there's no stats on those women, but we have seen it personally. There were, so it's horrifying to think that what it's like to be a pregnant woman, because and then they went into endure labor, and then what happened to them. And so if they survive labor, if they're not, but after, and they have a healthy child, first of all, because lots of premature babies are born in Gaza right now due to the stress, due to the trauma. And if they have healthy child, it's not the end of the story. They are having, they are not able to nurse their babies because there's no breast milk available. There's no formula available. So when I was there women literally, they were giving birth and they were crying. They said that, do you have any formula? Because we are not able to nurse. And after that, in the last, all of you guys aware, but in the last 5 months that the population in Gaza, they have been forcibly displaced into the southern part of Gaza in Rafah area. That's where I worked, in Rafah and Khan Yunis area. So there's no, if there's some women need C-section, there's only one small maternity hospital, Emirati hospital left in Rafah. and there's overcapacity because there's not enough beds. So we have seen personally that the woman is having a C-section. C-section is successful, and then they are out of the bed in 4 hours because there's a next woman on the line, and they have no place actually to go. And then the women who are admitted in the hospital, they are not admitted, they are just for a couple of hours, for C-section duration. After that, they don't have any place to go. Can you imagine that what's happening to those women? And there is no, and when we arrived in Rafah, we just got back like 2 weeks ago, there was no anesthesia medication for their surgery in the cesarean section. And all of those women who are in this forum, you can imagine that what's it like to go in labor, what's it like to go going to have surgery without C-section is just insane, it's inhumane, and it's this thing that we need to highlight these things, that what's happening to the Palestinian women there. And so let's see if the child is healthy, woman, whatever, endures, the C-section, labor, delivery. So where they're going to go? So they're going to go inside the hallway of the hospital, or they're going to go across the hospital in the streets, in the makeshift tents. So there's those tents are made of the bed sheets and blankets, as I said earlier, and they are not resistant to the wind or the cold or the rain. We have seen literally patients who were, their clothes were soaking in rain when, one day we had the rain when we were there. And there's a house insecurity, there's a food insecurity, there's no clean water. And everybody, the small babies are having deadly diarrhea due to the lack of clean water, and the women do not have any diapers. And there was one diaper is available of $1. There was women coming to our clinic where we were working. They were literally crying and asking for diapers. So when our team went, Humanity Auxilium team went, we took lots of suitcases filled with the medical supplies. And we were told by my colleagues in Gaza that, when you will come, can you bring some diapers? So we took some diapers, but I thought that, let's have the antibiotics, let's have these anesthesia medication rather than the diapers and the formula. So we did not take much. We took some, but when we went there and we saw that, I was just like in shock, because I have pictures of those women. They are using small babies, that literally shopping bags as a diaper, and for their own feminine hygiene things, they are using the plastic bags. So I have never seen like anything like in my life. Our clinic is running in the Rohingya refugee camps for the last 7 years. That's how I started my journey after going to the Rohingya camps. When I have dealt with the Rohingya women, with the earthquake victims, but we have help available in all these places. In the refugee camps, when the Rohingya refugees crossed Myanmar and entered Bangladesh, all the government organizations, all the UN agencies, they embraced them with open arm, and then they provided them food, but here they are living in a small space in enclosed like a concentration camps, and there's bombs dropping on them 24/7. There's no safe place in Gaza right now. In my talk today, my request is to you to just, I'm going to focus on Gaza right now, because I think it's the most unprecedented situation what the women are facing in Gaza. Even in the Second World War, they have removed all the women and the children, especially the pregnant women, out of that war zone. But there's no space for pregnant women. Most of the women that we saw, their families are still stuck in the northern Gaza. And when they fled from their home, when their homes were bombed, they did not have any supply. They did not have any time to pack their supplies. Everything was destroyed, and they literally fled with the clothes on their back. When we went there, we saw that those women, those children, they need everything that you can possibly imagine. The clothes, the medicine, shelter, Let me tell you one thing. My team is in Rafah. They are entering on Wednesday in Cairo right now. Some of the teams are in Gaza, but the next team is in Cairo right now on the way to Rafah. So I asked a young dentist. She was volunteering her time as a translator with me when I was there, because she could not finish her final year due to the war. Very bright young girl. So I sent her a message. I said that, no, do you need anything? Because my doctors are coming. So what she asked a blood thinner medication for her old father. And she asked me if I can send a tent, because she was living in the streets without any tent, without any shelter for the last 5 months. And she has been displaced 5 times since the war started. Because first they were living in northern Gaza, they were squeezed in the middle area, then that place was not safe, bombing started happening, and then they were here. So, and when I told her that yes, I can send her, she almost cried. She said that, oh, it means that I will have a safe place to stay. I don't have to sleep on the streets. I have shelter on my roof. So this is the situation that women are facing. There are no antibiotics available due to the blockade in Gaza right now. So the people who have survived the bombing, the sniper shots, they are dying now with the lack of the antibiotics. We have seen small babies dying with pneumonia due to there was no antibiotic available. All the doctors were treating with the paracetamol. So it's very unprecedented situation. And I think all the focus should be on that crisis right now. Besides, of course, what's happening to Sudan, what's happening to the Rohingya refugee camps, what's happening to the Afghan women, Syrian women. So, but what's happening in Gaza right now, there's no help available. And when I was talking to them, almost every woman I spoke to, she was complaining to me about the other countries, about the, the Arabs and the Western powers, that, what they are doing, and all the big feminist voices that they raise their voice about women's rights. And they were saying to me that, nobody's helping them. So I said that, I'm a woman, I came in to help you. But, you could say, they could not say verbally, but I could say the reaction on their face that, if you are raising the voice, if you are protesting, what's the result? What's happening? So it was very horrifying, as a doctor, as a mother, especially as a human being, just to see the horrifying situation the women's in Gaza right now facing. I will strongly encourage our democratically elected leaders to call for a ceasefire in Gaza and facilitate diplomatic dialogue. It is through our collective efforts, understanding, and compassion that we can pave the path for the lasting peace, ensuring a safer and more secure world for everyone. So on this forum, I would say that let us unite in our commitment to justice, equality, and peace. Let us work tirelessly towards creating a world where every woman can live free from violence, discrimination, where their lives are not determined by conflict, but by promise of a brighter and more equitable future. I'm here for any question and answers towards the end, but thank you so much for having me here in this space and share your community of wonderful women with me.
Jazakallah khair, and thank you very much, Dr. Fawzia Alvi. We loved hearing you, and it was very devastating to listen to your first-hand experience, what you observed and what you did. May Allah accept all these efforts, and may Allah grant you and bless you with his rahmah and everything. And inshallah, we'll join hands together, and we have stated a resolution, and we'll pass it on to you and women in the end of this session, inshallah, because the situation, as you just depicted it, is very dire. They are in very dire need of all these things you stated. And we now know for sure, the world knows the thing, they are in such a brutal condition right now. They have nothing to survive, or they have to thrive for humanitarian issues and everything. The basic requirements are not getting fulfilled. Women survivors are facing very bad conditions there. Anyone, if you have any question for Dr. Fawzia, and she's here to answer, I'll go to the chat. And Dr. Fawzia, our listeners are giving you duas and giving you their blessings. And I think for now there's no specific question directed to Dr. Fawzia Alvi, but if you have any, so I request the audience that put your questions in the chat box, and then we will direct it to Dr. Fawzia and she'll answer it. Okay. Bahut jazakallah khair. Thank you very much, Dr. Fawzia. Our second speaker is Dr. Amir Jamal. Dr. Amir Jamal is an associate professor in international and social development at University of Calgary. He serves as a director, global engagement and international partnership, and he's the program head of the international community of development, and for over 25 years experience in development sector. Dr. Jamal's scholarships in gender studies and girls education and women rights inform policy and practice for national government and international agencies. He is renowned for his book, The Gatekeepers, Engaging Pashtun Men for Gender Justice and Girls Education in Pakistan. He has been presented with prestigious awards, including the City of Calgary International Achievement Award and the Arch Award for International Career Achievement and the Sustainability Award for Faculty Research. Here is our second speaker, Dr. Amir Jamal.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and it's really an honor to be among such incredible and resilient women scholars. And what Dr. Fawzia spoke earlier, like our heart bleeds and we are in pain. Any human being with some sort of consciousness, men or women, Muslim, non-Muslim, they will feel the pain. They will feel the pain and they will want to do something about it. So thank you, Dr. Fawzia, for your amazing work. MashaAllah. I'll be just a bit holistic in my these 10 minutes I have overall about the women situation globally in conflict zones. And I will briefly share my story to set the context, and then I will offer 4 recommendations for holistically supporting women going through violence at multiple levels in many countries, in many conflict zones. My sisters, throughout my academic journey, I focused on gender justice, girls' access to education, and violence against women and girls' prevention, and particularly focused on war zones and conflict areas. So I have completed a few projects in Pakistan, Afghanistan, and now Turkey and Qatar, and now starting next month on a major global study in 6 Muslim majority nations on stories and trajectories of men and finding motivating factors for men who are supporting gender justice and are standing with women for their rights and justice, and then find ways to how to constructively engage them, respectfully engage them for gender justice. I wonder, like, why being a man? Sometimes I question, and people question in different conferences, why I'm so passionate about and chose this area for my research, practice, policies. So I was reflecting on it, and this question took me back to my beloved Peshawar in Pakistan. I was born and raised in the beautiful city of Peshawar on the border of Afghanistan. The city of flowers, we call it the Guluno Peshawar, the city of flowers. But in front of my eyes, the city became the center of wars and conflicts during Cold War era between United States and Soviet Union, and during the Afghan war against the occupation of Soviet Union. I witnessed that from my childhood to my youth. Afghan women and children flooded to my town from across the border. As I speak, the haunting images of those Afghan women come to my mind, those devastated women standing barefoot at the bus stop in my town. I remember in Spinjumat, Bod, Takal, in those towns, they'll be standing outside, nowhere to go. They didn't know how to even cross the road. I remember many were killed just crossing the road. Many lost their loved ones and became victims of various kinds of abuse. I witnessed that as a youth, unfortunately, from the very early age. Witness the miseries of war. A woman when she is facing. Luckily, I was part of a good, compassionate young group. We served Afghan brothers and sisters with very sincere heart, with whatever we had and whatever we could. In those experiences, my sister, I firsthand witnessed those oppressions of war, particularly for women. I learned from a very early age the pain of war, how painful and devastating it is for everyone, how it traumatizes and impacts the well-being of the whole community, particularly women. They have nothing to do with this war, but they are the first victim of war. So I witnessed how thousands of women suffer from sexual abuse in my city, in my country. Sexual abuse, hunger, lack of access of life-saving healthcare, as Dr. Fozia mentioned. My city, each corner of my city, the Gulunu Pekhawar, is witness to those sufferings, those abuses, those pains, but those resilience of women. So this experience was my inspiration work on gender justice and violence prevention in the region. This question, why women are the first brutal victim of every war and conflict in which they have nothing to do, no role. I recently asked a friend who has spent all his life in Afghanistan and played a major role during wartime as well as those few moments of peace. I asked him, what is the role of women in those troubles of Afghanistan, in conflict and miseries of Afghanistan throughout 40 years? What is the role of women? And he said, absolutely no role. So 50%, more than 50% of population who are suffering, who are the first victim, have no role in these wars, no stakes in these wars. Afghan women only played a peaceful role, for the development of Afghanistan. If there is a role of women, that is for peace, for development, for harmony, to bring people together, to resolve conflicts, to move forward. And you see, it's not just about Afghanistan, it's about everywhere. Look at the genocide of Palestinians who are suffering the most. Women and children are more than 70%. Data from the Armed Conflict Institute shows that in 2022, women and girls were the main targets in more than 3,200 political violence events across the globe, and more than took place in conflict-affected countries, where events of political violence targeting women has increased 1.5 times between 2020 and 2022. What kind of world we are living in today? Even in countries where there is no active war going on. Now, this is another context which we cannot forget. No war, no active war, but the state violence, structural oppression, militarism create war-like condition even during times of peace, so-called peace, especially for women and for communities at the margin of state power. Right now, from where you are conducting this seminar, this webinar in Pakistan, look at what is going on with women in Balochistan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and now also in different other provinces, Punjab, Sindh, Kashmir. State violence is separate from patriarchal violence. Highest maternal child mortality rates disappearance, violence against women is there in Balochistan. Baloch women activists gave it an appropriate name recently, the patriarchy in uniform. But I'm not leaving from here without talking about women resilience during wars and warlike situations. Women are courageous and resilient. They have natural capacities, being mom, right? Natural capacities that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given them for peace building and conflict resolution and harmony. They courageously stand up to protect their families and communities. I can share many examples of those resilient women in history as well as today who challenged and stood up to defend their families and communities and took education, economic, other Afghan women I have seen many times. Look at here. In this forum, my dear sister from my city, Calgary, Dr. Alvi, we are so proud of her, who was the first one to courageously take the stand and serve in Gaza with her son Walid, my nephew. I don't know any man from my city who took such a courageous step in going out there. Look at many Baloch women who have been resisting for the release of their loved ones and to stop state violence in their region. Look at many courageous women in many countries across the globe who are asking for women's rights based on their own faith-based cultural context, using a transnational feminist lens, not blindly following the white Western feminism. How to effectively support gender justice, wars, and survival of women. Now I'm coming towards the 4 recommendations there. But throughout in these 15, 20 years of experience in research in these different countries, listening to women and men and communities firsthand, we learned it requires a decolonial, transnational, context-based, community-oriented approach. For women, the sustainable change is the change from within, when it emerges from within, particularly engaging who I call the gatekeepers, men, into it with respect. Going to these areas, I'm now talking to global practitioners, going to these areas not as a teacher, but as a learner. We found in years of field research and development practice that everyone is included in conversation, but one group which is missing in these conversations and policy decisions, which is not who are not trusted, whose voice is often negotiated out. That is the community itself who we claim to serve. Women of those villages whose voice is not there. Someone else is representing something, but it's not about those women. Studies have showed that unidimensional approaches to conceptualizing, operationalizing resilience in all women won't work. It has to be culturally relevant components of resilience, including their faith, spirituality, strength, survival, their own way of survival, their own ways of active coping, and their social support. My 4 quick suggestions for actions. Throughout, it's a bit not restricted to like one area, but throughout, and particularly in Muslim majority nations. A big tent is needed where people with divergent views can sit for meaningful dialogue. Even in these kind of conflicts, like in Gaza kind of conflict, in Afghanistan, in other conflicts, there are polarizations, political polarization. How come? We need to sit together. We can build bridges, not pipelines, not something coming from one direction and telling you what to do, not imposing any views, but co-creating solutions, developing strong coalitions and networks with various stakeholders, institutions, community leaders need to come together. It's critically important that we become one voice in multiple ways. Number two, build supportive communities. Women need safe, brave, inclusive spaces, just like this, mashallah, where women can connect, share experiences, and support each other. This is very important that they share. This can be done through community center, even masjid, support groups, online forums, and there are many ways of doing it. Creating awareness through authentic teaching of Islam that prohibits such behavior blended with scientific knowledge that shows the evidence-based, the negative impact of violence on communities and children. Three, my third recommendation is about organizations, social and human services organizations, policy changes and awareness in organization and service provider. Significant policy changes are required. Training health workers, doctors, police, NGOs, mass media campaigns, and build support for prevention of violence. And changing those regulations and practices in multiple ways. I can speak about it, but due to time, I'm just focusing on just concrete a few bullet points. Number four, political landscape and state, academia. Research is critical to find out. Like right now, we can talk about it by our observations, right? But it will have the solid grounds when it is coming from research. And universities, researchers, and social activists need to come together for developing universally steep local solutions and influencing policies and legislations. Learning from global initiatives while creating sustainable solutions locally and intervention strategies in local context, involving women in decision-making, not just involve, not just participate, not just, oh, here are women, we spoke to them. No, respectfully listening to them, facilitating their leadership role, providing them the opportunity to lead in multiple areas. My sisters and audience, healthy and fulfilled women are the bedrock for peace in families and societies and communities and state. Peace is a gift to our very devastated people all over. This gift should be negotiated and offered in such a way that all segments of society, including women, can appreciate it and celebrate it. Thank you. Jazakallah khair.
Thank you very much, Dr. Amir Jamal. And you told us about the resilience of women, and we are really thankful for your insightful input. And my next speaker is Dr. Samiha Rahil Khazi, and she is the Chairperson, Council of Trustees, International Muslim Women Union. She is a member Board of Directors of Ghazali Education Trust. She is a member of National Commission on Human Development. She's a trustee of Women Aid Trust, and she is the member of Dawa Advisory Council, International Islamic University, Islamabad, member Board of Trustees, International Muslim Women Union, and she's ambassador of Al Khidmat Foundation, Pakistan, member of the Board of Trustees of Khawateen Trust, and trustee of Global Association of Muslim Women, and director of Foreign Affairs at Jamaat Islami Pakistan. And she has held many positions formerly. She's a former MNA, and she is the member of Islamic Council of Islamic Ideology and National Public Safety Commission. Without further ado, I'll ask Dr. Samiha Rahil Khazi to share her views regarding the rights and rehabilitation of female war survivors and women living in conflict zones. Over to you.
And we will not rebuild Gaza more beautiful, no, because Gaza was beautiful. We will build Gaza as it was, beautiful and resilient. We will build more schools, more universities, more hospitals, more houses. And guess what? We have experience with recovery. We have even experience with resurrection. We know how to survive. It's in our DNA. I promise you, we will recover and we will rise. But we are not sure if the world will recover this. If every politician who has stood by will recover this, will recover the mass murder of children, the normalization of the mass destruction of schools and hospitals and universities and houses and infrastructure. But certainly recover we will, because we have gone through it many times. But this time, I want to tell you this. This time we are so determined, absolutely determined, as Palestinians, that it will be the last time. This will be the last time.
Assalamu alaikum. I would remind the speakers regarding the time constraints, please. We have limited time available on the portal. So I think please keep it concise. Jazakallah khair. And Ma'am Samia Rahil Khazi is there. Over to you. The floor is yours, ma'am. Dr. Samia Rahil Khazi. Rahil Bhaji, Dr. Samia Rahil Khazi, is there any difficulty in kindly unmute Dr. Samia Rahil Khazi? Hera and Umena, can you please unmute Dr. Samia Rahil Khazi? We want to listen to her speech.
Yes, she is unmuted.
Okay. Here you go, Dr. Samia Rahil Khazi. The floor is yours.
Please allow me to share my screen.
Okay, okay. Allow share screening, please.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you, dear Sister Romesa, for this great opportunity. Can you hear me?
Yeah, very well.
Thank
Very
you.
clear.
Thank you. Today we gather to shed light on a critical issue that demands our attention and action: the empowerment of female war survivors and women in conflict zones. In the wake of unimaginable hardship and adversity, countless women around the world have demonstrated remarkable resilience and courage. However, their voices often remain unheard, their struggle overlooked. In this presentation, we aim to amplify those voices, explore the challenges they face, and discuss strategies for fostering empowerment and resilience amidst adversity. Together, let us embark on a journey towards meaningful change and solidarity with those who have endured the horrors of conflict. Here are some key statistics and data points related to empowering female war survivors and women in conflict zones. Displacement and vulnerability. According to UNHCR, women and girls make up around 50% of any refugee, internally displaced, stateless population, and they often faced heightened risks of violence, exploitation, and marginalization in conflict settings. Education. UNESCO reports that conflict-affected countries have some of the lowest levels of girls' enrollment in schools, with only 12% of girls in conflict-affected countries completing secondary education compared to 24% in other low-income countries. Economic empowerment. The World Bank notes that women participation in the labor force tend to decrease during conflict, but effort to economically empower women can have significant benefits. For example, studies show that women reinvest up to 9% of their income into their families and communities. Gender-based violence. UNICEF estimates that around 35% of women globally have experienced physical or sexual violence, and this figure is likely higher in conflict-affected areas. Conflict exacerbates the risk of gender-based violence, including rape, domestic violence, and trafficking. Political participation. The Institute for Economics and Peace reports that countries with higher levels of gender equality are less likely to experience conflict. However, women remain unrepresented in peace negotiation and decision-making processes, with only 13% of negotiators and 6% of signatories in major peace processing being women. Healthcare access. Women and girls in conflict zones often face barriers to accessing essential healthcare services, including reproductive healthcare. According to UNFPA, an estimated 507 women die each day from complications relating to pregnancy and childbirth in humanitarian crisis and fragile settings. Psychological impact. Conflict can have severe psychological consequences for women, including trauma, anxiety, depression, and post-traumatic stress disorders. Studies suggest that 8 to 70% of women in conflict-affected areas may experience mental health issues. Legal protection. The International Committee of the Red Cross highlights the importance of legal protection for women in conflict, including measures to prevent and address gender-based violence, ensure access to justice, and protect the rights of female survivors of war. These data points underscore the importance of targeted interventions and support mechanisms to empower female war survivors and women in conflict zones, addressing their diverse needs across various sectors. Economic empowerment. Provide training and resources for female war survivors and women in conflict zones to develop income-generating skills such as vocational training, entrepreneurships, and access to microfinance initiatives. This can help them achieve financial independence and stability. Access to education. Ensure access to education for female survivors of war and women in conflict zones, including programs focused on literacy, job training, and leadership development. Education empowers women to contribute to their communities and society as a whole. Legal support. Advocate for legal rights and protections for female survivors of war and women in conflict zones, including access to justice, legal aid, and representation in legal proceedings. This helps to address issues such as gender-based violence, property rights, and child custody. Psychological support. Provide psychological support services, including counseling and trauma healing programs, to address the psychological impact of conflict and violence on women. This can help them rebuild their lives and strengthen their resilience. Political participation. Encourage and support the political participation and representation of women in conflict-affected areas, including leadership roles in peace-building efforts, decision-making processes, and community governance. Women involvement in peace and security initiatives is crucial for sustainable peace and development. Healthcare access. Ensure access to healthcare services, including reproductive healthcare and psychological support for female survivors of war and women in conflict zones. This includes addressing issues such as sexual and reproductive health, maternal health, and access to essential medicines and treatments. Protection from gender-based violence. Implement measures to prevent and respond to gender-based violence, including sexual violence, trafficking, and exploitation in conflict-affected areas. This involves strengthening legal frameworks, providing support services for survivors, and promoting gender-sensitive approaches to security and justice. Community engagement and awareness. Promote community engagement and awareness-raising initiatives to challenge harmful gender norms and stereotypes and to foster support for the rights and empowerment of female survivors of war and women in conflict zones. This can involve advocacy campaigns, community dialogue, and educational programs. Bravery and resilience of women in Gaza. Bravery requires a growth mindset, resilience, vulnerability, and self-compassion. Resilience plays a role in stress-related growth. Resilient women of Gaza have tolerated stressful and complex living conditions and uncertainty more than any of us can fathom. Hence, they raised generations of valorous war heroes. The bravery and resilience of women in Gaza are awe-inspiring. Despite facing immense challenges, they continue to stand strong, often taking on multiple roles to support their families and communities. Their courage in the face of adversity serves as a beacon of hope, strength for their families and future generations. Women in Gaza demonstrate incredible courage daily, navigating through difficult circumstances with grace and determination. Their resilience in the face of adversity is a testament to their unwavering spirit and resilience. Through their actions and perseverance, they inspire hope and embody the true essence of strength and resilience. Palestinian women exemplify resilience amidst adversity, defying hardship and oppression with unwavering determination. Despite facing systematic challenges and harsh realities of occupation, they persist in striving for a better future, embodying strength, courage, and hope in their pursuit of justice and freedom. As we conclude our discussion on empowering female war survivors and women in conflict zone, let us remember that the journey towards equality and justice is ongoing. Each of us has a role to play in creating a world where all women, regardless of their circumstances, can thrive and fulfill their potential. By advocating for their rights, providing support, and fostering opportunities for empowerment, we can contribute to a more just and equitable society. Together, let us continue to stand in solidarity with female war survivors and women in conflict zones, especially Gaza and Palestine and Kashmir, ensuring that their voices are heard, their stories are valued, and their dreams are realized. Thank you for your attention and commitment to this very important cause. Thank you, Working Women Welfare Trust.
Thank you very much, Rahil Baji and Dr. Samiha Rahil Khazi, I must say. And this was a very great, insightful presentation for us. And it was overwhelming, and it motivated us to do more and put us more effort in for the cause of female war survivors and the women living in conflict zones. We thank you very much. I also want to acknowledge Ms. Shugufta Umar here, and I can see many distinguished guests in the list of attendees. She is Assistant Professor and former Director of Dawa Center for Women in Islamabad University, Islamic University Islamabad. And she did Masters in Human Rights and Faculty of Sharia and Law. And Ms. Umar is a frequent speaker and lecturer on religious and social issues and on broadcast media. She has published several research papers and books on this matter. And she is an assistant director in Women Aid Trust, and she works at Martaba Rahatul Islam as well. And she is an activist working for the rehabilitation and legal aid for women and juveniles in jails. We welcome you very much, and we acknowledge your presence here. And we will direct the questions to the speakers. If anyone want to ask anything about Ma'am Rahil Khazi's Dr. Samiha Rahil Khazi's speech and her insightful presentation. You can share your questions in the dialogue box and we'll ask and we'll direct it to Madam Dr. Samiha Rahil Khazi. And other speakers are also there to answer your questions. And my next speaker is Dr. Saima Asma. Dr. Saima Asma is a media and communication studies academic and a freelance writer. She's an editor of Available magazine, and her focus of work is on gender in media studies. She's a philanthropist currently working for Gaza. And the floor is yours, Ma'am Saima Asma. Dr. Saima Asma.
Hello and assalamu alaikum to everyone. I'm pleased to be part of this discussion session on empowering female war survivors and women in conflict zones, especially focusing on the women in Gaza. The CSW Forum is important for increasing the role of women in peace building and decision making with regards to conflict prevention and the peaceful resolution of conflicts in order to ensure the safety and well-being of all women. I remember attending the 59th session of the UNCSW back in 2015, where China, G77, and South Africa brought a resolution with the title Situation of and Assistance to Palestinian Women. There was no 7th October at that time and no Hamas in West Bank. Still it isn't. And the resolution started with recalling a number of UN resolutions on gender, development, and peace, on women, peace, and security, the Declaration on the Elimination of Violence Against Women, UN concerns on protection of civilian populations. Then it further recalled the relevant resolutions of the Human Rights Council, the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, and the Convention on the Rights of the Child. And it reaffirmed that these human rights instruments must be respected in the occupied Palestinian territory, as there are deep concerns about the grave situation of Palestinian women and girls resulting from the severe impact of the ongoing illegal Israeli occupation in all of its manifestations. Then, responding to the resolution, Palestinian delegate affirmed that Palestinian women can never have their human rights under an occupying force that does not reckon Palestinians as equal human beings, treats them inhumanly, and their leaders show intentions of erasing the existence of Palestine. And it was 9 years back in past when the post-7 October status of Palestinian women and children was still 9 long years away. Now, 9 years down the road, and now more CSW sessions, we are witnessing yet again an unprecedented war in Gaza, killing indiscriminately the civilian populations, most of which are women and children. According to an official of UNRWA, the number of children killed in 4 months in Gaza exceeds the number of children killed in 4 years of war worldwide. It is a continued oppression that is going on for 5 decades. Situation of Kashmiri women is not much different. There are chilling reports of hundreds of Kashmiri women raped and tortured in lieu of their related men, allegedly associated with resistance movement against Indian occupation. A long list of UN resolutions for Kashmiri people's right of self-determination is also awaiting to be implemented. And the more time passes, the more Kashmiri women pay the price. On forums such as this one, we need to understand that the most major barrier to women's rights in the world is the occupation that denies them peace and security. On this most prestigious forum concerning women's rights and well-being, we need to understand as global citizens that unless and until the world is safe from foreign occupations, imposed imperialist wars, and attacks on sovereignty of countries, there is no hope at all for women getting their rights. We all know that women and children are the first and the most serious effects of any war. Now, since 7th October, more than 31,000 Palestinians have been killed so far, and 72% of them, just imagine, 72% are women and children. There is a deafening outcry of people from all around the world calling it genocide. Palestinian woman amidst rubbles has emerged as an emblem of resilience, patience, grace, dignity, and valor. The whole world is witnessing her unprecedented commitment to a Palestine free of oppression and occupation. This forum needs to demand that Israel, occupying power, comply fully with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the Hague Convention, the Geneva Convention, and international covenants on human rights, and the recent ruling of International Court of Justice, of course. We urge the international community on the level of states also to come forward and save women and children in Palestine and Kashmir from brutality of war and occupation. We have seen people coming to streets in huge numbers in support of Palestinian women in literally every corner of the world. Using this popular support for Palestinian women worldwide, the Commission on the Status of Women needs to continue to raise a strong voice by firmly implementing the Nairobi forward-looking strategies, in particular paragraph 260 concerning Palestinian women and children, the Beijing Platform for Action, and the outcomes of the 23rd Special Session of the General Assembly, and especially CEDAW, that calls for elimination of all kinds of discrimination against women to save Palestinian women. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saimasma. And we regret the signals are not catching the pace of the speakers, and it's troubling. And I'm really sorry for that. We have listened to our esteemed speakers, and the next speaker is Noura Farooq, and she is a Palestinian Lebanese writer, oral historian, and birth worker doula. She is a president of an organization, Mothers for Justice. Her writing works focuses on Palestinian history through documentation of familial accounts of Nakba in Palestine and the civil war in Lebanon, and the intersectionality of history as it unfolds, and the experience of Palestinians in refugee camps of Lebanon and in the diaspora. And the floor is yours, Noura Farooq. Unmute yourself and kindly share your views with us.
Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me?
Yeah, very well.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you all for the beautiful speakers and the insight we've been given today on this forum. I'm Noura Farooq. I'm the co-founder of Mothers for Justice, which is a collection of mothers concerned on the welfare of women, children, and families in Palestine. I'm also an oral historian, so I document stories of Palestinians who have been, kicked from Palestine and follow their family history, as well as a birth worker. Today, we're here to speak and have the honor of speaking on Palestinian women and the situation of women worldwide, but we cannot do so without addressing the terror and horror of the Palestinian women in Gaza and what they're currently facing. I will, repeat some things that were said by the speakers, which I feel are still of utmost importance for us to continue to return to. But I feel that in order to understand the current context, we must rewind history and begin in 1948, where I can speak on my grandmother's story as a woman in a war zone. The Palestinian Nakba, which is the Arabic word for a catastrophe, happened in 1948. And this marks the first mass expulsion of native Palestinians from their homeland. This marks the year that the Zionists invaded with paramilitary groups. In Haifa, where my grandmother lived, having just been married, it was the Haganah who chased her out. My grandmother, like many Palestinian women, was just married, left to be pregnant and rear 6 children in refugee conditions in Lebanon with little to no family. She did all she could, even sitting on the street, to sew the leg stockings of other women to give some ability to care for her children. Without access to money she had saved, safety, access to complete schooling for her children, proper health or dietary care. Like many, she was reliant on UNRWA, a UN aid group which the United States has recently decided to defund at such a critical time for Palestinians who rely on its services. In Gaza, some of these women come from families who, like mine, were already exiled from different towns in Palestine and made into refugees which were internally displaced in Palestine to Gaza, either in 1948 or in subsequent years as the massacres continued. So some of these people are repeat refugees. Such acts of violence, apartheid, aggression, has been used to justify the creation of a state which has unprecedented effects on the Palestinian woman. Israel has deprived them of adequate clean water, placing a blockade on Gaza since 2007, setting a calorie limit for each day, which they call putting the people of Gaza on a diet. Since the outbreak of the current assault on Gaza from Israel, 31,000 Palestinians have been killed, more than 13,000 children. Girls have been unable to access sanitary care for their menstrual cycles, and in turn have resorted to taking disruptive hormonal pills to stop their natural cycle. They have been deprived of education as all schools in Gaza have been bombed. Medical care is near impossible, as we've learned from the other speakers, as it seems there is one functional hospital left in Gaza which is continually targeted. Families have been destroyed and lineages ended, memories, photos, and homes destroyed. This is the part of engineering a genocide and the eraser of a people. My co-founder, Layla, with Mothers for Justice, lost 100 plus members of her family within the first few weeks of the assault on Gaza. And this is just one family we're speaking of. When we consider the importance of women in a society, there are many roles, psychological and physical toll taken on them. There is the need of women and the mothers who caretake our children, who lead the next generation of girls who need education, health, food, and care. The result and lasting effects will take all of our collective efforts to help advocate for and rebuild. Sexual violence has also been documented as a tactic against unfairly held female Palestinian hostages of war of all ages, including children as young as 12 years old. As we have seen videos published online of soldiers entering the house of displaced Palestinians of Gaza, showing women's undergarments and trying to embarrass them in other ways. We go on to talk, besides the psychological, physical effects, and a focus on maternal health, particularly as a birth worker. This is a major crisis which should be taken as an emergency by all international parties and those able to effect immediate change. As a pregnant Palestinian woman myself, I know all too well the care and needs necessary for pregnancy in normal conditions, let alone in a war zone without care. Women carry the lineage of a society and continue its generations. This attack on the ability of Palestinian women to give birth is also an attack on the future of Palestinian people and the future of Gaza. There is estimated to be around 50,000 pregnant women in Gaza now, with 180 delivering each day. Miscarriages have increased 300%. C-sections have had to be performed with no anesthesia, the unthinkable. Women have given birth with no pain management, and after shortly, many stories we hear, asked to get up and walk a 20-mile hike from North to South Gaza to the next location which Israel demands them to go, even without coverage from bombing. Some have been separated from their newborn children along the way, which is a devastating reality to consider. The need for a body to heal after birth is a known one. The need for comfort and sustenance for a mother to produce breast milk is paramount. Without the ability, the baby is in dire need of formula to survive. This requires both formula to enter the Gaza Strip as well as clean water. 17,000 Palestinian children in Gaza are left unaccompanied, meaning they have been separated from their families, or every single person in their family has been killed. A new phrase has been invented to answer the condition of the children of Gaza, abbreviated to WCNSF, meaning wounded child, no surviving family. This idea completely destabilizes our society's foundation, not only in Gaza, in Palestine, but in what we accept for the world. It is an emergency situation the world must respond to. We cannot claim ourselves to be feminists, to be advocates, to be lovers of humanity, and ignore a glaring and urgent need for basic care and help the Palestinian women of Gaza. We must reframe feminism as holistic for our globe, to respond to the needs of our sisters, and not just in the Western context. It is a stain on humanity if we allow this to continue without exasperating all efforts to call for a complete ceasefire and do all we can to ease the burden on the Palestinian women and children by advocating and pushing necessary aid into Gaza. We take this lesson and what we see to ensure this does not continue, nor sit idly by in silence as Palestinian women and daughters suffer unimaginable conditions. We cannot leave the burden of perpetual resilience on our women in such conditions. We must pressure from the outside, advocate in all arenas which we are able. From every one of us in our communities at home, institutional and non-institutional, to our masjids, house of worship, and even in our families. Please feel free to reach out to Mothers for Justice, and I thank you all for your work, commitment, and human hearts. And we hope for the work and all the work we're doing together to make a real change in our society. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Noura, for your insightful speech and your sharing of your personal experiences. And we want to tell you that you are never alone. We all stand for Gaza, and we all stand for the survivors of war and female war victims, and we all are here. Now we'll show a video. We'll share a video with you, which is developed by Rifa University of Health Sciences, a media students group of Rifa International University. And we'll play that video. And now you can kindly play the video, please. This is developed by the Media Sciences Department of Rifa International University, Islamabad.
مجھے آج بھی یاد ہے جب میں کچن میں بیٹھ کر امی کے ساتھ بابا کے گھر آنے کا انتظار کر رہی تھی کہ کب بابا آئیں گے اور کب میں ان کے کندھے پر بیٹھ کر باہر گھومنے جاؤں گی. پر اچانک کیا ہوا کہ کچھ لوگ آئے اور بابا کو گھر کے باہر سے اٹھا کر لے گئے. مجھے نہیں معلوم کہ لوگ کون تھے, کیوں آئے تھے اور کیوں لے کر گئے تھے, پر بابا اکثر کہتے تھے یہاں ایسے ہو جاتا ہے. بابا کے جانے کے بعد کچھ لوگ گھر کے اندر بھی آئے تھے. ماما بہت چیخی تھیں, چلائی تھیں اور مدد کے لیے بھی بلا رہی تھیں, مگر کوئی نہیں آیا. وہ 7 سال کی انشا یہ تو نہیں سمجھ پا رہی تھی کہ یہ سب کیا ہو رہا ہے, سب سے بڑھ کر کیوں ہو رہا ہے. مگر اس رات میں اتنی وحشت تھی, اتنی دہشت تھی کہ آج بھی وہ انشا اپنی زبان پر یہ سوال نہیں لا سکتی. اس رات صرف میں نے اپنے باپ کو نہیں, اپنی ماما کو بھی کھو دیا تھا. مجھے نہیں پتا کہ میں کب کیسے کتنی بڑی ہو گئی, خود پر کبھی دھیان ہی نہیں گیا. امی کی طبیعت گھر کے حالات کے ساتھ ساتھ بہت خراب ہوتی چلی گئی. ویسے بھی جب مجبوریاں سر پر پڑ جائیں تو ذمہ داریوں کا عمر سے کوئی تعلق نہیں رہتا. بن باپ کی لڑکی, درندگی کا نشانہ بننے والی ماں, اور ایک بنا باپ کے نام کا یوسف, ایسے گھر کی لڑکیوں پر کون مہربان ہوتا ہے؟ اس سرزمین پر یہ کون سا پہلی مرتبہ ہوا ہے؟ میں کوئی خاص انشا تھوڑی ہوں. مجھ جیسے نہ جانے کتنی انشا اس بربریت کا نشانہ بن چکی ہیں, نہ جانے کب تک بنتی رہیں گی. ایک مظلوم لڑکی جو اپنی ماں کی ذمہ دار بیٹی, اپنے بھائی کی بڑی بہن اور ماں, اور اپنے باپ کا باکردار بیٹا بننے چلی تھی، پر نہ جانے کیوں اس کی قربانیوں کو اس کے گلے کا طوق بنا دیا گیا۔ آج وہ انشا ایک سوال کرنا چاہتی ہے، قصور کیا ہے میرا کشمیری ہونا، میرا پیدا ہونا، یا میرے باپ کو اٹھا کر لے جانا، یا میری ماں کو درندگی کا نشانہ بنانا، یا ان سب کے باوجود زندگی اور آزادی کی امید رکھنا۔ لیکن میں تو انشا بنت معین الدین ہوں نا، کشمیر کی بیٹی ہوں۔ مجھ سے سب کچھ تو چھین سکتے ہیں لیکن آزادی کا خواب نہیں۔
ستم گر سے آج کہہ دو وفاؤں کا ذکر چل نکلا، اس معصوم سے کہہ دینا جس پہ ظلم کا حساب اب بھی باقی ہے، کل کا سورج نکلے گا، کل سے راج ہمارا ہوگا۔
Thank you very much. Now our next speaker is Madam Shamim Shawl. Madam Shamim Shawl is a Kashmiri women Hurriyat leader, and she has been granted the European International Women's Leadership Award by the Forum International Due Leadership Feminine for her human rights work, and she has tirelessly been doing for the people of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. And I have a lot of details on the introduction, but I'm getting short of time, and I don't want to be the annoying moderator who tells everybody to shorten their speech, but we are really, we have time constraint here. So now we'll listen to Ma'am Shamim Shawl and her valuable insights.
Thank you, organizers. Thank you, organizers, for inviting me in this event, Empowering Female War Survivors and Women in Conflict. The preamble of the Charter of the United Nations states that we, the people of the United Nations, are determined to reaffirm faith in fundamental human rights, in the dignity and worth of the human person, in the equal rights of men and women, and of nations large and small. All nations are bound to respect and fulfill United Nations Charter, whereas member states have pledged themselves to achieve, in cooperation with the United Nations, the promotion of universal respect for and observance of human rights and fundamental freedoms. Unfortunately, we have observed that the promises are not properly fulfilled by everyone. Women and children's rights are affected and eliminated and violated by the government institutions. Although 23 experts on women's rights from around the world and committee members of the CEDA and other NGOs like IWPF worked for children's and women's peace and rights. After the World War First and Second, a number of NGOs were established to support the human and women's rights and affected families. The organizations shared important experience and contributions on the war, which was important turning point in history. The effect of war on women in different countries like Asia, Africa, and Australia is a historical document and a challenge to the world society. The loss of life and killing of men and missing persons was a horrible tragedy which destroyed their family units. The loss of human race and destruction of happiness was psychological dimension of war. It had made life bitter and difficult. We observed public debates about women's social, political, cultural, and civil rights after the wars. They performed in different sectors of life, but we ignored women in war zones who are living the miserable life and same tragic life as in World War I and II. The only little difference in women involvement had changed the social state of Western women. Women of East and Kashmiri women especially are facing a great challenge in threat of war and responsibility of home and children. Women's work in World War I of 20th century was an important factor in the outcome of both wars. The involvement changed working lives in many countries. This work experience developed opportunity and confidence among women. Skill-based work could give them paid and voluntary jobs and employment, but our women's role is totally different. She is paying high price in imposed war. In the absence of men, she is jobless. In the First World War I and Second, 2.2 million women were working, but in Kashmir, you can see women in thousands are jobless. They cannot work. Their men are in jobs, and at home, they have tremendous problems which we have no idea how to overcome. They cannot get the education of their children in presence of army in their schools and colleges. In the missing persons was well documented by Anjana Chatterjee, a well-known international human rights activist, and the story of widows. Women's contribution in imposed war is much greater than men. The role and activity during this war and the consequences and results of the war has changed the lifestyle. It affected social system and family units, and still is an unfold story. We can never say everything is okay. About women's rights, United Nations Secretary General B.K. Moon said, I quote, these two points that firstly in 1995, Beijing Platform for Action has given recognition to the women and full participation in contributing and maintaining peace. But India is a signatory to United Nations Human Rights Charter, and it is not only ignoring all illegal rights to women by violating all basic human rights, whatever it is, women's health and education is affected. Their home and honor and dignity is affected. Women are most affected in all war zones. According to the Amnesty International, they called India and Indian authorities to immediately carry out fair and impartial investigation into the allegations of parliamentary and CRPF involvement in the murder and sexual assault of the women. Kashmiri women's contribution is lauded in all aspects of life during the armed conflict, and there is not enough international intellectual debate on this subject. According to reports in the year 1991, on the night of February, Indian troops of 5th Rajputana Rifles raped 30 women in Kuranposhpora in Kupwara, aged between 18 to 85 years old. Reports indicate that a few have been psychologically affected, but there are large numbers of reports that these women were not able to remarry and they are still waiting for justice. We have another story, the story of Asia and Nilofer. The magnitude of crime committed by the Indian Army could be well assisted by this fact that even John Dead, now 110 years old, was no spared. The Asia and Nilofer's murder is a gross human rights violation in Kashmir Valley. These two young women who were working in their fields were raped, then murdered. There's another story of a little Ashifa who was kidnapped, then raped, and then murdered. But these stories are untold stories. There is no international investigation. India is not ready to allow international NGOs to investigate these cases. Therefore, we, on behalf of International Muslim Women Union, on behalf of Kashmiri women, on behalf of every woman who is affected during these wars, appeal to the international community and these NGOs to help and support and stand up for justice. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ma'am Shamim Shawl. And anyone, if you want to ask questions, please kindly place your questions in the chat box. Now I'll introduce my next speaker. Ma'am Tazeen Hassan is Human Rights Advocate with Justice for All Canada, and she is recognized for impactful work on behalf of Uyghur Turk minorities and honored with the Harvard Spotlight Award in 2020. Tazeen regularly imparts her expertise as a speaker at Esteem Global Platform, including the United Nations Human Rights Council in Geneva and the UN headquarters in New York and Amnesty International. After October 7th, Tazeen embarked on a journey to Palestine, venturing into Al-Quds and West Bank. And now she's here to share her first-hand experiences she had in Gaza lately. Over to you, Tazeen.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone, and thank you for having me. My name is Tazeen Hassan, and I serve as the Advocacy Manager for Justice for All Canada, a human rights advocacy dedicated to combating the persecution of minorities and genocide of Indigenous communities. Before we delve into the depth of our discourse, I must extend my heartfelt gratitude to the Working Women Welfare Trust and its chairperson, Abda Farheen, whose leadership has made this UN CSW event possible. It's truly inspiring to see so many remarkable women leaders gathered here today. Dr. Fawzia Alvi, a constant presence in the conflict zones, Shamim Shawl, a lifelong warrior for the rights of Kashmiris, Saima Asma, a tireless advocate for the rights of Pakistani Muslim women, and last but not the least, Brother Amil Jamal, whose dedication to female education in Pashtun Belt is commendable. Also, as we gather here today, let us not overlook the critical mandate of the Commission on the Status of Women at the United Nations. Established to promote gender equality and empowerment of women, the CSW served as the beacon of hope and progress in our collective pursuit of justice. It is within this framework, that international cooperation and advocacy, that we find ourselves empowered to confront the harsh realities faced by women in conflict-affected areas. Working in the human rights and journalism sector for the last 10 years, I've had the privilege of working closely alongside women of numerous communities affected by conflict, witnessing their struggles. From the Uyghur women of East Turkestan enduring the oppression of Chinese regime in Xinjiang to the Rohingya women seeking refuge in the camps of Cox's Bazar and the families of Kashmiri detainees like Asiya Andrabi and Shabbir Shah, trapped in a cycle of injustice in Indian jails. I've also stood in solidarity with Indigenous communities in Canada, grappling with the intergenerational trauma of residential schools and ongoing discrimination. Briefly, I've seen the challenges faced by Ukrainian women amid the relentless Russian invasion. In each of these instances, I've been humbled by the strength and courage displayed by those women facing unimaginable adversity. In my journey through conflict zones, one aspect of women experience has consistently left me in awe: their unparalleled resilience. Their strength and fortitude displayed by women in the face of unimaginable challenges never failed to move me. It's a testament to the extraordinary power bestowed upon women by the divine, allowing them to carry out their responsibilities with grace and determination, both within and outside the confines of their homes. It saddens me when I talk to the daughter of Kashmiri political leader Shabbir Shah, whose life has been overshadowed by her father's 4-decade-long detention. Similarly, I can't forget the Uyghur women who gave birth to a boy in a detention center in Thailand while fleeing the relentless religious persecution. When I met her in Turkish city of Kayseri in 2019, she was raising her children alone, fearing her husband's potential deportation to China. These stories are not merely tales of individual hardships. They serve as stark reminders of the systematic injustices that continue to plague our world. As we gather here today, let us not shy away from confronting the gender dimension of human rights violations in conflict zones. It was my extensive visit to Palestine after October 7th that left an indelible mark on my conscience. Living amongst Palestinian families in Al-Quds, East Jerusalem, and the West Bank, I bore witness to the harsh realities of occupation. From IDF raids in remote villages to atrocities committed in refugee camps like Jenin, I saw the resilience of Palestinian women in the face of unimaginable adversity. Since October 2023, over 31,000 Palestinian civilians have been killed, 70% of whom were women or children. 2 mothers fall to conflict every hour. Numerous women are undergoing C-sections without anesthesia, without medicines, and even without water. Nearly 1 million women and girls have been displaced, facing heightened risk due to the lack of essential services such as shelter, sanitation, and healthcare. Amid this turmoil, there are no safe spaces for survivors of gender-based violence. Here, I will present before you the harrowing fact from a UN report published on February 18th, in which UN experts have called for an investigation into alleged extrajudicial killings, as well as arbitrary detentions, rapes, sexual assaults, inhuman treatment, and enforced disappearances of Palestinian women and girls. The Euromed Monitor has also recorded cases of sexual violence and torture by Israeli forces. Furthermore, the UN's Committee on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women has sounded the alarm on the severe threats faced by mothers and pregnant women in Gaza. The UN experts also expressed alarm over the arbitrary detention of hundreds of female human rights defenders, journalists, and humanitarian workers in the occupied territories. Many have reportedly been subjected to inhuman treatment, denied menstrual pads, food, medicine, and even water. Palestinian women detained in Gaza were reportedly kept in a cage in the rain and cold without food, at least on one occasion. We know the rights of women in conflict zones are safeguarded by a comprehensive array of international legal frameworks, encompassing instruments such as Convention of the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. Moreover, Geneva Convention and their additional protocols serve as a vital pillar, offering protection to civilians and combatants in armed conflict, with specific provisions addressing the safeguarding of women against rape, sexual violence, and other gender-based atrocities. Moreover, international criminal law, exemplified by frameworks like the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court, provides a robust legal framework for prosecuting individuals responsible for war crimes and gender-based violence during conflict, ensuring accountability through the jurisdiction of international tribunals. Customary international law derived from established state practice and general legal principles supplements the treaty law with binding norms and rules for the protection of women in conflict, irrespective of treaty adherence. Reflecting on these legal frameworks, I can't help but feel a sense of guilt. Despite these international safeguards, the reality remains that we have collectively failed the women of Gaza. As a Pakistani Canadian, I carry the weight of our government's failure to fulfill their obligations towards Palestinian women. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tazeen, for your views and your sharing of experiences. My next speaker is Dr. Javeria Saeed, and she's a psychiatrist working in Australia, and she's currently the NSW State President of Islamic Circle of Australia and New Zealand. She has been the part of various Islamic and medical organizations in Pakistan, Canada, and Australia, and has been a community activist and a member. And over to you, Javeria. Dr. Javeria, can you listen to me? Can you hear me? Oh, maybe Dr. Javeria is having trouble to join. And I think I should introduce my next speaker. She is, okay, Javeria is here.
Mr. Mesa, can you wait? Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, over to you, Javeria.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you, Ms. Abida Fahim, for giving me the opportunity to contribute to this esteemed forum. It is indeed very sad that the long-standing Israeli occupation of Palestine and the recent genocide post-October 7 has created the biggest humanitarian crisis, and it needs global attention on different levels. Palestinian women and children, especially, they have experienced a high magnitude of traumatic events due to war, with family members being killed or injured in front of their eyes, and houses being demolished, hospitals being attacked. War trauma leads to a wide range of psychological consequences and disorders that can be quite disabling for the individual and their families. I want to mention here one study that suggests that no emotion regulation strategy can protect a child's mental health from the negative impact of war. There is a high prevalence of a wide range of psychological and psychiatric disorders, including post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, anxiety in people with war-affected areas as compared to the general population. And different studies show that there is a difference of about 4 to 5 times higher rates of post-traumatic stress disorder in people's war-affected areas as compared to the general population. These symptoms, the symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, they are very, very disabling. These individuals, they experience flashbacks and terrible nightmares, putting them to relive the whole traumatic experience again and again repeatedly. And when I see such patients in clinical practice, they find it very hard to stay calm. Their body remains in a constant form of stress and arousal, and they find it very hard to leave their house, to go to public places, and even to travel in public transport. It is very hard for them to trust people. There is a constant sense of hypervigilance, as if they're being monitored all the time. They wake up in the middle of the night because of the night terrors and nightmares, and they find it very hard to fall back to sleep. They have panic attacks, and then during those episodes, they have a hard time breathing, their heart is racing, they're shaking and perspiring, and they find it very, very hard to calm down. It impacts significantly their functioning, their academic performance, and their work as well. Apart from that, people who are, especially women who are from war-affected areas, there is a high rate of depression and anxiety. Another study that has been conducted in the refugee population, it shows the degree of humiliation. When people are subjected to humiliation during war and siege conditions, they have a very negative perception of physical health being. So they feel like they report more physical health symptoms if they are being humiliated in the past. So now this can reflect this is just a glimpse of the terrible consequences, the physical and the mental consequences of war. And we can just imagine this is what the people of Gaza and Palestine are subjected to. And I've been watching these videos on social media as well, showing, children and women in the hospital after they were attacked. And sometimes you find them completely mute, not talking a lot, or looking with empty eyes, or they're shivering and they're shaking, and people are trying to calm them down. When it comes to recovery and rehabilitation, resilience is the key. This is the most important factor. And resilience is an individual's innate ability to cope in the adverse situations. And alhamdulillah, we are seeing miraculous and beautiful demonstrations of resilience from the people of Gaza, when they're saying goodbye to their loved ones, when they're kissing the heads of the dead bodies of their beloved family members, burying them, reciting the Holy Quran, and then staying hopeful and keeping their faith in God and in the fact that they're actually right. But I think what the world needs to do, we can't just leave them on their own to fight back, to resist to the huge magnitude of war. I think we need to play our role as well to provide them support as well. And when we talk about rehabilitation and recovery, the most important thing, I think the first thing from where we start is to provide a safe space for any sort of therapy, for any sort of consolement. The challenge that we're facing at the moment is that the war is ongoing. There is continuous state of uncertainty. I mean, you can be attacked at any point. There is no safe space for people to feel safe, to feel supported at any point. Mental health care teams from around the world, they are not allowed to enter Gaza and Palestine to provide them support. And I think there is a large number of people are dying. I mean, it is only the people of Gaza who are trying to support and provide all sorts of support to their own people. But that's not enough. The world needs to play their role as well. I think the first thing that we need to continue to demand is ceasefire, is stop the war so that the people can have some stability, a sense of stability and sense of safety. People who are very, very injured and they're badly terrified and impacted by the war, they should be allowed to travel to neighboring countries for better medical and mental health support. Humanitarian organizations, healthcare providers, mental health care providers, they should be allowed to enter Gaza and Palestine to provide support to these people. We need to start, the world needs to start, rebuilding the houses and hospitals and therapy centers. And I think we will be needing to provide that support for, quite a long time, given the magnitude of the war. I would say, in the end, I would say that there is no other message, there is no other demand but to cease fire, cease the occupation, let these people live their life. They have the right to feel safe and to live with freedom in their own land. Jazakumullahu khaira.
Thank you very much, Dr. Javeria Saeed. And now our speaker is from Palestine. Palestine, she is Mariam Shoaib, an activist working for empowerment of female refugees. She is a student of St. Francis College, and undergraduate thesis is about Palestinian national identity and how it has been affected by the ongoing occupation. She has been organizing many protests and movement with Muslim or American society, and she also has conducted field research in Palestine last summer with a focus on West Bank. Now over to you, Mariam. And I have to remind you of the time constraint. Jazakallah khair.
Thank you so much. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. As we gather for the 68th session of the Commission on the Status of Women, Gaza is currently exhibiting the irreparable repercussions of an engineered genocide with Palestinian women as its primary victim. Before I begin, I ask that you not subvert the profound pain that is enshrined within the following statements. Isolating the impact of Israel's engineered genocide against Palestinian women to numerical value is an understatement in understanding the extent of destruction Palestinian society currently exhibits. So instead, allow me to contextualize the perceived threat the Palestinian woman poses to the settler colonial regime. There's a common Arabic proverb that goes, "As-sawt al-mar'u thawra," The voice of a woman is a revolution. In Palestine, we teach life, and it is this very lesson that endangers the existence of the oppressor. The teacher of this valuable lesson is the woman, for being a woman in Palestine is to be at the epicenter of society. To be a woman in Palestine is to nurture the relationship between the needle and the thread as new stories are forged. To be a woman in Palestine is to teach life, even as you bear witness to its destruction. To be a woman in Palestine is to exist, even in death. Prior to the ongoing genocide, the average Palestinian woman living in Gaza has witnessed at least 4 wars within her lifetime: a 22-day siege in 2008, a 7-week siege in 2014, several months of indiscriminate bombardment in 2018, and an 11-day siege in 2021. For nearly 164 consecutive days, women have involuntarily exchanged their decadent thobes for prayer clothes, as the necessities of life have become an unattainable dream. The hands that once picked the olives under the golden sun now clench markers as they write their family names on their bodies in hopes that the thick black marks will testify for their existence. Their nurturing eyes, once filled with unspeakable love, are now bloodshot with undertones of grief in its most severe iteration. Matriarchs have witnessed the gruesome cycle of repetitive displacement that has resulted in the dissemination of olive branches from their family trees. Within a 6-month time period, over 900,000 women and girls have been displaced from their homes, some for the second or even third time in their lives since the Nakba of 1948. 1 million women and girls reside in Gaza, 700,000 of which are of menstruating age according to the UN Population Fund. Access to optimal period products is a fantasy as women are forced to adapt to inhumane conditions, making menstruation an entirely different kind of war. The Palestinian struggle for self-determination has only ever been evaluated through a humanitarian spectacle. This classification severely undermines the organized militarization that has preemptively sentenced Palestinians to eternal suppression in every dimension of modern society. Saying that we are confronting a humanitarian atrocity is a gross misclassification of the issue at hand. What Palestinian women are currently confronting is a settler colonial regime who is at war with the fundamental existence of Palestinian life. The prospect of violence is the result of a choice informed by the Zionists' desire to suffocate Palestinian existence from the ground up by any means necessary. The existence of the Zionist project is painted with the blood of Palestinian ancestry, as homes are dispossessed, villages carpet bombed, schools decimated, hospitals deprived of medicinal treatment, and olive trees burnt. As we reflect on the immense impact that conflict implicates on women, we must also reflect on ways to deconstruct this vile cycle of generational obliteration. This effort of restorative justice should be free of vetoes and short-sighted Security Council sessions. We must identify and abolish exceptions to international statutes. In doing so, we will secure a brighter and safer world where injustice does not reap reward and where a system of accountability is restored. Moving forward, I ask that you exchange your moments of silence with disruption. Palestinian women deserve liberation within their lifetimes. Schools deserve the enlightenment of Palestinian women to illuminate their halls. We must decolonize the idea of gender-based progress. We cannot envision the eradication of gender inequity without materializing the liberation of Palestinian women and, by extension, the Palestinian people. What good is discussing the status of women in war if this discussion only amounts to my words and nothing more? So do not wait until the Palestinian struggle is a distant memory encased in museums. Our indigeneity is not for your ponderance. When the ink has dried, how will you see yourself reflected in the story of struggle? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mariam. You touched our hearts through the depth of your words and the feeling you experienced, and as you said, that is an engineered genocide, we all know. And we'll inshallah take this resolution and point all these suggestions to take this to UN and demand, put our charter of demands there, inshallah. Now I would like to invite Ms. Shagufta Umar. She is the director of Dawa Academy, International Islamic University, Islamabad. She will share some views on this program and on this event, the parallel event we had here. Ms. Shagufta Umar, over to you, please. Ms. Shagufta Umar is here. Now we can.
Assalamu alaikum. And good morning.
You are very well welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Rumesa, for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts. I will just like to give a brief account of addressing sexual violence during armed conflicts. Sexual violence, as we know, is tragically prevalent in many modern conflicts, and it is a devastating phenomena with damaging consequences for victims, all for women, men, boys, and girls, as well as for their families and the entire communities. Moreover, they remain underreported and underestimated both in terms of prevalence and consequences. They are prevalent in a number of contemporary armed conflicts such as Central African Republic, Mali, South Sudan, Darfur now in North Sudan, Syria, Kashmir, Palestine, and especially for those who are under arrest. While we need to realize the effects on survivors and to deal with the situation, we see that many societies provide feeling of guilt and shame, and they don't talk about it or reach out for help for fear of retaliation. For the words, before we talk about the response to those victims, I would just like to draw the attention of the participants for the world's humanitarian response to this issue. First of all, we see that the international humanitarian law, then human rights law, which is for during the peace conditions, and international humanitarian law, which applies for the armed conflict period. They both absolutely prohibit sexual violence at all times and against anyone. Similarly, international criminal law provides for the individual criminal responsibility of sexual crimes perpetrators. The Statute of International Criminal Court also includes rape and some other forms of sexual violence in the list of war crimes and crimes against humanity when they're committed as part of a widespread systematic attack directed against any civilian population. Then rape and other forms of sexual violence are prohibited under treaty law, that is the 4th Geneva Convention 1949, as well as its additional Protocol 1 and 2. Coming to the dealing of sexual violence effects on victims, first of all, it should be considered as a medical emergency, resulting in severe physical and psychological health consequences. Crucial to provide prompt access to quality and timely medical care within 72 hours to reduce the risks of sexually transmitted diseases and infectious diseases. And then their privacy and confidentiality needs to be maintained strictly while responding to the needs. And then the very important point is that in case of unwanted pregnancies, the Muslim scholars should come up with a consensus on termination of pregnancy, as there is no consensus opinion about this. Otherwise, in the other world, in the other faith, they say that it should be removed. As children born out of rape and their mother are also highly vulnerable and can face a heightened risk of exclusion from the community. The non-medical help requires protection from further violations through providing them risk awareness and risk reduction activities. And to provide support they should be provide support in reintegrating the community, and awareness and education to the community should also be provided to make it not to make it stigmatize the situation and reject these people. And to our knowledge, as we see International Committee of Red Cross, ICRC, it is addressing both the causes and effects of sexual violence in responding to the affected needs throughout the world. And I was going through a question here that UN is not doing this, at this time is not addressing to the situation. So I thought that ICRC, they claim that they independently also try to work with both the countries and try to resolve the situation. So maybe we can formally resort to them to take notice of some conditions. Thank you very much for giving me time.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shagufta Umar. Now I'm having a look at the chat. Ms. Musfira Jamal, she was a former chairperson of Working Women Welfare Trust, and she is still a board member and executive member of Working Women Welfare Trust. She is shared her insightful views that there is a dire need of an international, empowered, unbiased forum to stop such atrocities as we witnessed in Palestine and Gaza. UN has failed its global responsibilities. You're very right. And we have to look for a way into this, how to resolve these problems. We have joined together, we are connected, we have shared our views, and now we'll pass a resolution, inshallah, and at the end of this program. Now I'd like to call on Ms. Abida Farheen. She is the current chairperson of Working Women Welfare Trust. She's a philanthropist working to appraise the status of women in Pakistan. And she is a social and media activist. She is an author and mentor to many thousands of women in Pakistan. She is the founder president of Society for Educational Welfare, and she also writes articles about women issues, and she's an author. And now I would like to give the floor to Ms. Abida Farheen, and she would share her remarks.
Dear respected panelists, speakers and attendees, Assalamu alaikum and hello. I am here on behalf of the Working Women Welfare Trust, Pakistan, to express our deep gratitude to all of you. Your participation has been crucial to the success of our conference on empowering female war survivors and women in conflict zones. Together we have created a powerful platform for change. I would also like to applaud the dedication of the organizing team, volunteers, and all the CSW 68 staff whose efforts made this event possible. Yet we are reminded of the harsh realities faced by women and children in conflict zones, where essentials like food and medicines are often inaccessible. This crisis undermines global peace and human rights, calling for our immediate action. The tragic loss of lives till yesterday, 31,654 martyrs and 73,676 injured as a result of Israeli aggression since last October 7th. The majority being women and children underscores the urgency of our mission. We must rally behind these families, offering our support to all alleviate their suffering. Our action today will define our legacy. As champion for justice or as bystanders in the face of injustice, we can feel good about ourselves, and we remember as people who fought for what's right in history. If today we fail to fulfill our social and individual's role against this injustice, then the history will record us as lifeless beings. We look forward to continuing our journey together and building on the momentum generated at this conference. I am confident that the idea generated and relationship formed will continue to drive progress and positive change in our respected cause. Thank you again for all attendees and the speakers and panelists and our team. Jazakallah.
Thank you very much, Ms. Abida Farheen. And she has been the background player for whole event. And may Allah bless all the team efforts and all the people who joined and all the speakers. We are really thankful. Now we'll pass the resolution, and I read it to you. And if you agree, kindly put your remarks in the chat box or raise your hands to show me. A resolution says, recognizing the ongoing humanitarian crisis in the occupied Palestinian territories and sufferings of innocent civilians, we condemn all acts of violence, discrimination, and violations of human rights in Palestine, which resulted in the loss of innocent lives, displacement, and sufferings of the wounded men, women, and children in Gaza. This forum demands immediate and unconditional ceasefire and removal of all barricades that hinders the supplies of food, water, medicine, and other surgical equipments for the residents of Gaza. We demand that IDF must compensate the losses and provide water, food, medicine, and surgical equipments, and provide housing and shelter to all homeless refugees. The siege of Gaza should be removed and all barricades should be taken away. Female journalists and doctors and paramedical staffs and volunteers must be given safe passage and security to work for the rehabilitation of female war victims. And we also demand to release all prisoners in IDF occupation. Sustainable development goals can never be achieved unless we release the sufferings of the female war victims. If you do agree with this resolution, kindly raise your hands. And then we'll present this resolution, inshallah, to UN Women and the leaders there running the show. And I would like to thank you very much for all the participants, for everyone, every soul being here and putting their bit into this river of flowing emotions and flowing empowerment and flowing, working tirelessly for the rights and rehabilitation of female war victims. And now I would like to hand over this mic to Ms. Aisha for the formal closing of the session.
Thank you, Ms. Ramaisa. As we reach the end of today's webinar, once again, I would like to thank our esteemed speakers for taking out the time to share their expertise and valuable insights with us, the attendees, and the team members at Working Women Welfare Trust. We now formally conclude today's session with the dua. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Far removed are you from all imperfections, O Allah, and I praise you. I bear witness that there is no deity worthy of worship except you. I seek your forgiveness, and to you I repent. Goodbye, and assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.